In this life, a man is defined by the split seconds, the moments that test the weight of his soul and the iron in his blood. One choice can crown a king or dig a grave. For Bumpy Johnson, Judgment Day arrived at 3:30 in the morning, a sweltering July night in 1948. He stepped out of Small's paradise. Business was handled. 2 runners kept in line. Just another night at the office. Harlem slept. The streets were barren, save for the ladies of the night, and a drunk seeking refuge in the shadows. Then a noise cut through the silence. A sound Bumpy knew in his bones. The wet, rattling gasp of a soul slipping away. An ordinary man keeps walking. But Bumpy Johnson, he never turned a blind eye. He stepped into the darkness and found the boy. Face in the dirt. Body shaking like a leaf in a storm. Foam at the lips. The Reaper was 5 minutes away. But then, the glint of gold caught his eye. An Italian ring, initials D, M, David Mitchell, the only son of Sonny Mitchell. The same Sonny Mitchell who had been hunting Bumpy like a dog for 2 long years. The snake who ambushed his crew. The man who swore Bumpy was already in a pine box. He could walk away. Let the boy rot. Call it divine justice. Sonny would be broken, his empire crumbling under grief. Or, what Bumpy did in the next 60 seconds would become a legend whispered on every corner of Harlem. But to understand the weight of that night, you have to know the blood and grit of Harlem. 1948, the Great War was done. Soldiers returned, but on these streets, the real war was just sparking its first flame. White poison flooded the block. Pure heroin, shipped from Turkey, courtesy of the Italian families. It was a plague. It took the young, the bold, the kids who thought they could outrun death until their hearts gave out. Bumpy Johnson was 41, a veteran. He ran Harlem before these punks learned to walk. Numbers, policy, protection, every dime, every hustle. It all funneled up to Bumpy. He wasn't loud. He didn't flash gold or shout orders. He didn't have to, because when Bumpy Johnson stepped into Small's Paradise or the Cotton Club, the room shifted. The band played on, but the chatter died. A moment of silence, pure respect, because Bumpy had a code. No poison for the children. No hands raised against women. And he stood as the shield. If you were Harlem-born, Bumpy made sure the Italians stayed in their lane. That was the law, the code of the street. But one man spat on that code. One man believed the king was dead. He wanted new blood, new money, a new order. Sonny Mitchell, 35, hungry, and backed by a mid-level crew out of the Bronx. 2 years ago, he started pushing dope into East Harlem. Set up shop right on 116th. He sat right on the edge of Bumpy's kingdom. At first, Bumpy let the dog bark. The city had room to breathe. But Sonny got greedy. He pushed toward 125th. He ran his mouth. Called Bumpy a relic. Said the throne was empty. Then Sonny crossed the line. He hit a number spot. Put 3 men in the hospital. One of them carried Bumpy's own blood. That was the signal. War. Bumpy torched Sonny's warehouse to the ground. Sonny tried to hit Bumpy outside, Smalls. Bumpy's crew snatched a lieutenant off the street. Sent him back with 3 words, "Stay out of Harlem." It was ugly. It was personal. Only one boss would survive this. Sonny Mitchell hated Bumpy more than the devil himself. And Bumpy, he knew Sonny had to be put down permanently. That was the landscape on July 15th, 1948, a world with no mercy for the weak, where a soft heart meant a closed casket, where power was the only currency. But that night, walking to his ride at 3:30 a.m., Bumpy faced a choice that broke every rule. The alley off Lenox was pitch black. It smelled of rot and piss. Bumpy almost passed it by, but the sound stopped him cold. That rattle, that gasp, he'd heard it 1,000 times. Kids frying their brains on the pure stuff. Bumpy turned into the shadows. The boy was maybe 19, draped in silk, Italian leather on his feet, face buried in his own filth. He twitched like a puppet with slashed strings. Bumpy knelt, checked the pulse. Weak, fading fast, the clock was ticking, and then the streetlight caught the gold, a custom piece with the initials D, M, carved into the gold. David Mitchell. Bumpy recognized that ring instantly. He'd seen it on Sonny Mitchell's boy when the kid was playing street soldier in Harlem, desperate to earn his father's respect. Bumpy rose to his full height, staring down at the fallen prince, Sonny Mitchell's only bloodline. The spawn of the man who had put a hit on Bumpy 6 times in 2 years. For 10 seconds, Bumpy Johnson stood in that alley like a statue. 10 seconds to weigh the scales of war. David Mitchell checks out. Sonny Mitchell is broken. A man burying his child doesn't think straight, can't strategize, can't fight. He only grieves, and a grieving man is an open target. This was a golden ticket, a gift dropped right on the pavement. Bumpy didn't need to lift a finger, just turn his back. Let the streets eat their own. Let the poisoned Sonny Mitchell flooded Harlem with claim Sonny Mitchell's own flesh and blood. It was a cruel kind of poetry. Bumpy turned to walk, but his feet wouldn't move. The code spoke to him. The law of the jungle he respected. Women and children, they are off the board, untouchable. Even the opposition. But David Mitchell wasn't in diapers. He was 19. Old enough to sign his own death warrant. Old enough to know the price of the needle. Bumpy took one heavy step toward the asphalt. Then it hit him. A noise, a pathetic whimper. The boy was weeping, not from the agony, but from the terror. The pure terror of a man staring into the abyss, knowing there is no coming back. Bumpy shut his eyes tight. When they snapped open, the verdict was in. Bumpy Johnson scooped David Mitchell up like a sack of flour. The kid was dead weight, limp, seizing up, froth and bile spilling from his lips. Bumpy hauled him out of the alley across Lenox Avenue toward the whip. Eyes were watching. The shadows had witnesses. Ladies of the night on the corner froze. They stared. Bumpy Johnson cradling a dying white boy in his arms. In 1948 Harlem, that picture broke every rule of nature. Bumpy ignored them. He threw David in the back of the Cadillac and floored it. Harlem Hospital was 6 blocks out. He tore through the distance in 4 minutes flat. Emergency dock was round the back. Bumpy skidded to a halt and carried the body in. The desk nurse looked up, seeing a black kingpin holding a white casualty. Her eyes nearly popped out. "Overdose," Bumpy barked. "The junk. You save him, now." The nurse locked up, just for a heartbeat. In 1948, Harlem hospitals took black cases, but they didn't exactly rush, especially not at 3:45 in the dead of night. Bumpy leaned in close. His voice was a whisper, but it hit like a sledgehammer. "You are saving this boy's life. You get your top cutter down here. You do it this second, and I ain't moving from this chair until you do." The nurse scrambled for a gurney. 2 orderlies sprinted over. They ripped David Mitchell from Bumpy's grip and wheeled him into the trauma zone. Bumpy took a seat. The place was a ghost town, save for an old lady with a wrapped hand and a drunk passed out in the corner. Bumpy sat there, solitary, stone silent, waiting. His custom shirt was ruined with bile. His hands trembled, not from nerves, from the rush, from the gravity of the line he just crossed. He just gave life to his rival's bloodline. The son of the man who wanted Bumpy in a pine box. The son of the man trying to burn Bumpy's kingdom. Now Bumpy had to wait on the dice roll. If the kid lived, Bumpy had a whole new game to figure out. 6 a.m. The sun began to bleed over Harlem. Bumpy had been a statue in that chair for 2.5 hours. That is when the double doors flew open. Sonny Mitchell marched in, flanked by 5 hitters. Sonny looked like a wreck, eyes bloodshot, suit looking like he slept in it. His hand hovered over the piece in his belt. He spotted Bumpy in the waiting area and froze dead. For 5 heartbeats, the two kings just locked eyes. Bumpy didn't rise, didn't reach for his steel. He just sat, ice cold. Sonny's muscles spread out, fingers on triggers, ready to dance. Where is he? Sonny's voice was gravel and glass. Operating theater, Bumpy replied. They are fighting for him. Sonny's jaw locked tight. The man looked haunted, stripped of his armor. His palm was sweating on the grip of his revolver. He looked at Bumpy, and the world stopped. 5 seconds of silence, loud as a gunshot. Bumpy stayed seated. No flinch, no fear. Stone cold, waiting on the devil. Sonny's dogs fanned out, heaters ready to blaze. Where is my son? Sonny's voice was raw, broken. He stared at the operating room doors. Bumpy stood like a stone wall and said, "They are doing everything they can." Sonny's jaw set like granite. "What did you do to my boy?" Bumpy didn't even blink. "I did nothing. I found him dying in a gutter. Overdose. I brought him here." Sonny let out a laugh. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "You expect me to buy that? You? Saving my son? You didn't let him die? Why? So you can use him as a pawn against me?" Bumpy slowly shook his head. "I saved him because he is just a kid. And kids shouldn't die in dark alleys. Just because their fathers are too busy fighting wars over street corners to notice they are falling apart." The words hit Sonny like a physical blow. The color drained from his face. "You don't know a thing about my son." "I know he was shooting the poison you push into Harlem," Bumpy said, his voice low and dangerous. "I know he overdosed on product so pure it stopped his heart. And I know if I hadn't stepped in, you would be picking out a casket right now instead of pointing that pistol at my chest." Sonny's grip tightened on the steel. "Maybe I should put you down anyway." "You could," Bumpy said, cool as ice. "But your boy is behind those doors fighting for his life, and when he wakes up, if he wakes up, he is going to ask who saved him. You want to tell him it was the man you just murdered? The man you taught him to hate?" Sonny's hand trembled. The gun lowered. The double doors swung open. A doctor stepped out. Exhausted. His scrubs were stained with fresh blood. "Family of David Mitchell?" the doctor called out. Sonny stepped forward, commanding the space. "I am his father." The doctor nodded. "He is alive." "Barely. We lost him twice on the table. He is critical but stable. If you had brought him in 5 minutes later, he would be gone." Sonny looked at the doctor, then his eyes shifted to Bumpy. "Who brought him in?" The doctor pointed a finger at Bumpy. "That man. He carried the boy in his own arms, refused to leave until we started working." Sonny stood frozen. His soldiers looked at him, waiting for the command, waiting for the violence. Bumpy stood up slowly. "Your son is breathing, Sonny. That is all that matters. What happens between us? That is business for another day." He turned toward the exit. "Wait." Bumpy stopped, turned. Sonny Mitchell looked small, defeated, not by force, but by truth, like a man who just realized he almost lost the only thing that counted. "Why?" Sonny asked. His voice was a ghost of itself. "Why would you save him after the hell I brought to your doorstep?" Bumpy went quiet. Then he spoke the heavy truth. "Because I know what loss feels like, and if I can stop another father from feeling that hollow pain, even an enemy, I will, every single time." 3 weeks later, Bumpy Johnson walked into Small's Paradise. Tuesday night ritual. He took his booth, ordered his drink. The front door opened. Sonny Mitchell walked in alone. No guards. The music didn't stop, but the room went dead silent. Everyone knew the bad blood between Bumpy and Sonny. Everyone waited for the explosion. Sonny walked to the booth, stood there, a statue of regret. Then he sat. "My son is alive," Sonny said. "Doctors say he will make a full recovery. He is in rehab, getting clean." Bumpy nodded once. "Good. He told me the truth about that night. Said the heroin was bad. Said he was fading away. and he told me you carried him to the hospital like he was your own." Bumpy said nothing. Sonny reached into his jacket. Bumpy's hand drifted toward his piece, but Sonny pulled out a white envelope. He slid it across the mahogany. $10,000. For the bills, for the trouble. Bumpy pushed the envelope back without looking at it. This wasn't for cash. Sonny stared at him, truly saw him. "Then why?" "Because your son is not part of this war," Bumpy said. "He is a kid who slipped up. He deserved a second chance at life." Sonny sat in silence. The weight of the moment settled. "The war is over," he said. "I am pulling my crew out of Harlem. You won." Bumpy shook his head. "I didn't win anything. Your son survived. That is the only victory worth a damn." Sonny stood up, extended a hand. "I owe you a life. That is a debt I can never square, but I am going to try." Bumpy stood, looked at the hand, then he took it. The whole club watched two kings make peace, not friends, not partners, but men who understood that a father's duty that was bigger than any street war. From that day on, Sonny Mitchell never made a move against Bumpy Johnson again. The war was officially dead. As for Bumpy, he kept his mouth shut about that night. He didn't use it for leverage, and he certainly didn't brag. He just went back to business, running Harlem the only way he knew how, with a code of honor. But word travels fast on these streets. The tale of Bumpy and Sonny hit every corner of Harlem. You wouldn't find it in the papers or on the radio. It was whispered in the barber shops and the pool halls, on the corners where men spoke the truth. They talked about how Bumpy Johnson saved the son of his worst enemy, how he carried a dying boy to the hospital when he could have easily walked away and let nature take its course. He chose mercy over blood. And let me tell you, that story shifted the weight of things in the neighborhood. It reminded everyone that even in this racket of violence and rats, there were lines you just didn't cross. There was still a code to live by. Moments where being a man meant more than just having muscle. David Mitchell cleaned up his act and stayed that way. He never touched the stuff again. Years later, he left the city to teach school in Philadelphia. But he never forgot the night Bumpy Johnson gave him a second chance. Every July 15th, a card would arrive at Small's Paradise. Two simple words: "Thank you." Sonny Mitchell was a man of his word. He pulled out of Harlem and focused on legit business operations. And if anyone asked him about Bumpy Johnson, he gave them the same answer every time. That man taught me the true meaning of honor. As for Bumpy, he never said a word in public, but his inner circle knew it was the thing he was most proud of. Not because it ended a war, not because it made him a kingpin, but because it proved that even on these cold streets, mercy still counts. When Bumpy passed in 1968, Sonny Mitchell showed up at the funeral. He stood in the back, silent, paying respects to the man who showed him an enemy could be a savior. The lesson from that night, in July of 1948, is simple, but it carries weight. Real power isn't about who you can crush. It's about who you choose to save. Bumpy Johnson had the power to let David Mitchell die. He had every reason, every excuse in the book, but he made a different call. He chose to pick up his enemy's son and save his life. In doing so, he proved that true strength isn't found in a gun, it's found in mercy. If this story of honor in the underworld moved you, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. Share this with someone who needs to know that doing the right thing matters, even when no one's watching. Drop a comment about a time someone cut you a break, and don't forget that notification bell. For more untold stories about the real Bumpy Johnson, the man behind the legend,